Did you know that at one very specific, terrifying moment in 1990, a homeless man shuffling down Fifth Avenue with a paper cup of loose change had a net worth approximately $900 million higher than yours? It sounds like a riddle or a bad accounting joke, doesn't it? But what if I told you that being $1 billion in the hole isn't the end of the world, it's actually the beginning of the most dangerous leverage play in financial history? You probably won't survive this kind of pressure without developing a mild cardiac arrhythmia, but let's see if we can navigate the wreckage anyway. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, I'm curious where you're tuning in from tonight. Drop your city and your local time in the comments below. I love seeing who is awake with us. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Why is looking at a homeless man suddenly the most terrifying moment of your career? You are standing on the sidewalk of Fifth Avenue, the wind cutting through your expensive overcoat, and for the first time in your life, the gold plating on the Trump Tower sign looks a little dull. It's the early 1,990 seconds, the party of the 1,980 seconds. That neon-soaked, hairspray-fueled decade of excess is officially over, and the hangover is brutal. You aren't just feeling the pinch of a recession. You are feeling the crushing weight of gravity. You look at that man on the street, clutching his meager belongings, and you realize the math is irrefutable. He has $0. You have times negative times billions. In the grand ledger of the universe, he is a titan of industry compared to you. You take a deep breath, inhaling the exhaust fumes and the scent of roasted nuts from a street vendor, trying to steady your heart rate. How did this happen? You were the golden boy. You wrote Times, The Art of the Deal, asterisk. You were the guy who turned a rundown Commodore hotel into the shiny Grand Hyatt. You were supposed to be untouchable, but here you are, drowning in a sea of red ink so deep the Mariana Trench looks like a kiddie pool. It all started with an addiction to yes. You wanted everything, and the banks, desperate to park their cash in your oversized pockets, said yes to everything. You bought the Plaza Hotel because it was a trophy, not because the numbers made sense. You bought the Eastern Airlines shuttle, renaming it the Trump shuttle, because you wanted your name in the sky, even though you knew absolutely nothing about running an airline. And then, the crown jewel of your bad decisions, the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. Let's talk about the Taj for a second. You envisioned the eighth wonder of the world, a casino so gaudy, so massive, that gamblers would flock to it like moths to a very expensive flame. You financed it with junk bonds at interest rates that would make a loan shark blush 14%. You need to make $1 million a day just to pay the interest. $1 million a day in 1990. It's a special kind of talent to bankrupt a casino, a place where people literally hand you money for nothing but you, in your ambition, have managed to construct a building that eats cash faster than the slot machines can swallow it. You walk through the lobby of your own tower, nodding at the doormen who still treat you like royalty, unaware that the king is wearing no clothes and his credit card is maxed out. You get into the elevator, watching the numbers climb. The silence is deafening. Inside your head, it's a cacophony of panicked accountants and furious lawyers. You personally guaranteed $900 million of this debt. That's the kicker. That's the detail that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling of your penthouse. If the company goes down, you don't just lose the company. You lose the helicopter, the yacht, the homes, the lifestyle. You lose Times, you asterisk. Historians still argue whether the banks were simply too greedy to do their due diligence, or if your personal brand was so blindingly bright that it short-circuited their risk assessment models. Either way, the bill has come due. You sit at your massive mahogany desk, looking at the skyline you helped shape, and the phone won't stop ringing. It's not the press anymore. It's the creditors. And they aren't calling to congratulate you on your high ratings. The economy has tanked. The real estate market has collapsed. It's a perfect storm. The value of your assets is plummeting while your debt remains fixed in stone. You are technically insolvent. You check the latest fax, yes. Fax machines are still the cutting edge of misery delivery systems, and see the numbers from the shuttle. Nobody is flying. The planes are gilded, the floorboards are maple, the bathrooms are gold, and the seats are empty. It turns out people just want to get from New York to Boston on time. They don't need a chandelier in the fuselage. Who knew? You rub your temples. The stress is physical. It's a tightening in the chest, a dryness in the mouth. You remember the headlines starting to turn. Asterisk Forbes Times dropped you from the 400 list. The newspapers are sniffing blood in the water. The Donald is becoming a punchline. This is the part of the movie where the hero usually gives up, moves to a quiet farm, and learns the true meaning of Christmas. But you don't do quiet farms. You do skyscrapers. There is a bizarre reality to your life right now. You are still famous. Tourists still take photos of your buildings. You are still a celebrity, but financially, you are a walking corpse. You have to go to meetings with bankers, gray men in gray suits, who used to beg for your business and now they look at you with a mix of pity and contempt. They want to strip you for parts. They want to take the Times Trump Princess asterisk, your 282-foot yacht. They want the plaza. They want it all. But as you sit there, watching the sun dip below the New Jersey horizon, a strange, counterintuitive thought begins to form in the back of your mind. It's a survival instinct, sharp and cold. You realize something crucial about the scale of your problem. If you owed these banks $10 million, you'd be in big trouble. They would foreclose, take your house, and kick you to the curb. But you don't owe them 10 million. You owe them billions. And that changes the dynamic, doesn't it? You lean back in your chair, a small, tight smile playing on your lips. You aren't their employee. You aren't their victim. You are their partner. If you go down, you take the whole banking sector of New York City down with you. You are a systemic risk. You are a human grenade with the pin pulled, sitting in their lobby. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about psychology. You have to convince the very people you swindled charmed times into lending you this money that you are the only person on earth capable of fixing the mess you created. It's a high-wire act with no net. You have to walk into a room full of people who hate you and convince them to give you more times money just to keep the lights on. You stand up and walk to the window, pressing your hand against the cold glass. The city below is a grid of lights. Millions of people living their lives, paying their mortgages, oblivious to the high-stakes poker game happening in the sky. You fix your tie. You check your hair in the reflection, immaculate, armored against the world. You are about to walk into the most hostile negotiation of your life. The wolves are at the door, but they don't realize you're the one holding the keys to the meat locker. Can you talk your way out of bankruptcy when your own yacht is being repossessed? That is the question bouncing around your skull as you straighten your tie in the reflection of a polished mahogany door. You are about to step into a conference room at the headquarters of Citibank. Or maybe it's Chase. The boardrooms all start to look the same after a while. Beige walls, oppressive silence, and the faint, sterile smell of chilled air and impending doom. You push open the door. Inside, sitting around a table long enough to land a Cessna on, are the representatives of nearly 70 banks. That's right, 70. You didn't just borrow from the big guys. You borrowed from everyone who had a checkbook and a pulse. And now, they are all here, forming a united front of gray suits and furrowed brows, looking at you like you're a delinquent teenager who crashed the family car. Except the car is a casino, and the repair bill is a few $1 billion. The atmosphere is thick enough to chew on. These aren't the friendly loan officers who took you out for steak dinners in 1986. These are the workout specialists, the corporate undertakers sent to strip the meat from the bones of failing companies. They have your financials spread out in front of them, stacks of paper that condemn your empire as a house of cards. They know you're bleeding cash. They know the Taj Mahal is a disaster. They know you can't make the payments on the Trump shuttle. You take your seat at the head of the table, or maybe the foot, depending on how humble you're pretending to be today. You don't cower. You don't apologize. You look them in the eye, and you play the card you formulated in your penthouse while staring at the skyline. You explain the reality of the situation with the calmness of a man ordering a ham sandwich. You tell them, effectively, if you foreclose on me, you get the assets. But in this market, those assets are worthless without me. It's the ultimate bluff, but it's anchored in a terrifying truth. If they seize the Trump shuttle now, they have to sell it in a depressed aviation market for pennies on the dollar. If they take the plaza, they're selling a hotel that isn't making money. You convince them that the Trump name, that intangible, golden dust you sprinkle on everything, is the only thing propping up the value of this collateral. You are essentially telling them that the buildings are just piles of brick and mortar. Asterisk U times are the magic sauce. Historians still argue whether the banks agreed to your terms because they genuinely believed in your turnaround potential, or if they were simply terrified that writing off your massive loans all at once would crash their own quarterly earnings reports and get them all fired. It's likely a mix of both. They were trapped in the cage with you, and you were the only one who knew how to pick the lock. But the yes comes with a heavy price. This is where the survival deal gets humiliated. They agree not to force you into personal bankruptcy, a fate that would permanently destroy your brand, but they put you on an allowance, a literal allowance. It's one of those quirky, almost unbelievable footnotes in financial history. The banks restrict your personal spending to $450,000 a month. Now, to the average person listening to this in their pajamas, $500,000 a month sounds like winning the lottery every 30 days. But for you, it's a straitjacket. You have to budget for the maintenance of 3 homes, staff, security, and the lifestyle that convinces the world you're still rich. You are a billionaire on a budget, clipping coupons in your mind while wearing Italian silk. And then comes the pain of the liquidation. To appease the banking gods, you have to sacrifice the toys. This is the part that actually hurts. You watch as they take the Times Trump Princess asterisk. It's not just a boat. It was one of the largest yachts in the world. A floating palace with a disco, a cinema, and a helipad. You have to sell it to Prince Al-Walid of Saudi Arabia. He picks it up for a song, a fraction of what you said it was worth. Watching it sail away is like watching a piece of your soul detach and float into the Atlantic. Next goes the airline. The Trump shuttle, your attempt to dominate the skies, is handed over to the banks. You never really liked the airline business anyway. You tell yourself too much regulation, too much grim reality, not enough gold leaf, but the public failure stings. The press is having a field day. The incredible shrinking billionaire, they call you. But here is the strange magic of your survival deal. While you are technically losing assets, you are keeping the game alive. You negotiate a pause on interest payments. You get a little breathing room. You are dancing through the raindrops, getting wet but not drowning. The stress is unimaginable. You're working 18-hour days, moving money around like a shell game, robbing Peter to pay Paul, then convincing Paul that Peter is actually good for it next week. There's a moment during these dark years that sums it up perfectly. You're at a dinner party, surrounded by New York's elite. The champagne is flowing, the chandeliers are sparkling, and everyone is laughing. You are laughing too, louder than anyone. But under the table, your knuckles are white. You know that tomorrow morning, you have a meeting where you have to beg for a reprieve on a loan covenant. You are performing the role of Donald Trump, billionaire, to save Donald Trump, the man. It's method acting on a global scale. You realize that perception isn't just reality. Perception is currency. If people times think times you are back, you are back. So you start showing up everywhere. You do cameos in movies. You show up in Times Home Alone 2 asterisk, giving directions in the lobby of the Plaza Hotel, the very hotel the banks are trying to take from you. You smile at the camera. You look successful. You realize that as long as you are on the screen, as long as you are in the papers, you are relevant. And relevance can be monetized. The bankers, for their part, are exhausted. They just want their money back. They've realized that managing your assets is a headache they don't want. They aren't hotel operators. They aren't casino moguls. They are spreadsheeters. And spreadsheets can't run a hospitality empire. Slowly, begrudgingly, they start to realize that maybe you were right. Maybe you are worth more alive than dead. You survive the early 90 seconds not by paying off your debts, but by restructuring them into oblivion. You spin off the casinos into a public company, shifting the debt from your personal ledger to the shareholders. It's a maneuver that leaves some investors furious, but it clears your balance sheet. You emerge from the wreckage lighter, leaner, and with a very different perspective on what actually holds value. You look at the buildings you fought so hard to keep, and you realize they are heavy, expensive, and risky. But the 5 letters TRUMP that didn't cost a cent to maintain, and it survived the fire. You are walking out of the bank headquarters now. The deal signed. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across Manhattan. You loosen your tie. You don't have the yacht anymore. You don't have the airline. But you're still here. You're still standing. And as you hail a cab because the limo is currently being serviced and you're watching the budget, you have an epiphany. Why build the building when you can just sell the sign? What happens when you realize your signature is worth more than the buildings it's attached to? This epiphany hits you not in a boardroom, but perhaps while staring at a bottle of water, or a tie, or a steak. It's the mid-90 seconds turning into the new millennium, and you are tired of the grit of construction. Concrete is heavy, steel is expensive, unions are a headache, and debt, well, we've established that debt is a dragon that almost ate you alive. You look at your empire, scarred but standing, and you decide to change the business model entirely. You are done being a builder. You are going to become a label. The shift is subtle at first, then aggressive. You realize that developers all over the world in places like Panama, Turkey, the Philippines, want to build luxury towers, but they lack one crucial ingredient: cachet. They have the money, the land, and the permits, but they don't have the glamour. Who has the glamour? You do. Despite the bankruptcies, despite the tabloid scandals, the name Trump still screams gold-plated success to a certain segment of the global market. It signifies an American kind of opulence, brash, unapologetic, and expensive. So, you start selling the name. It's genius in its simplicity. You don't put up the money. You don't take the construction risk. If the project goes bust, it's not your bankruptcy. You just license your name for a fee, often a hefty upfront payment plus a percentage of sales, and in return, they get to bolt those 5 gold letters onto the facade. You become a franchise, like McDonald's, but for penthouses instead of cheeseburgers. You start flying around the world, not to oversee foundation pouring, but to cut ribbons. You show up, smile for the cameras, give a thumbs up, say the building is tremendous, and then fly home, leaving the local developers to deal with the plumbing issues. It's the ultimate high-margin, low-risk business. Your overhead is basically the cost of a Sharpie and a plane ticket. But you don't stop at buildings. You look around at the consumer market and think, why not? If people want to live in a Trump building, maybe they want to wear a Trump tie. Maybe they want to sleep on a Trump mattress. Maybe they want to eat a Trump steak. Okay, the steaks were a bit of a stretch, sold at the Sharper Image of all places, and they kind of tasted like victory mixed with shoe leather. But you tried. You launched Trump vodka, Trump water, Trump cologne. You turn yourself into a lifestyle brand. This is the era where you truly separate the man from the myth. The man is still dealing with the complexities of his remaining debts and business entanglements. The myth, however, is pristine. The myth is everywhere. You realize that as long as you keep projecting success, people will buy into it. It's a feedback loop. The more products you have, the more successful you look. The more successful you look, the more products you can sell. One mainstream historical fact from this era is the sheer volume of these licensing deals. At one point, there are Trump towers popping up in Seoul, Toronto, Dubai, and Istanbul. You are globalizing your brand faster than any diplomat. And here is the quirky tidbit. You even license your name to a multi-level marketing scheme selling vitamins. You, Donald Trump, the guy known for Diet Coke and fast food, are suddenly the face of a urine test kit to customize vitamins. It's bizarre, it's fringe, and it brings in cash. Historians still argue whether this dilution of the brand, slapping your name on everything from mattresses to degreeless universities, cheapened your image, or if it actually democratized your fame, making you a household name in Middle America, not just a Manhattan elite. The elites in New York laughed at the stakes. They rolled their eyes at the water. But the guy in Ohio? He saw a brand he recognized. He saw success he could touch. You were inadvertently building a base, not of customers, but of believers. You are also learning the power of no bad publicity. During this time, your personal life is messy. Divorces, marriages, more tabloids. But you notice something strange. The sales don't drop when you're on the cover of the Times, New York Post-Times for a scandal. Sometimes, they go up. You realize that attention is the oxygen of your new business model. It doesn't matter if they are booing or cheering, as long as they are watching. If they are watching, you can sell them a tie. This pivot is what saves you. The licensing revenue is pure profit. It refills your coffers without the terrifying leverage of the 80 seconds. You start to accumulate cash again. Real cash. You renovate your own image. You aren't the debtor anymore. You are the boss. You write more books, asterisk. The art of the comeback, asterisk. You frame the narrative. You tell the world. I was down, and I fought my way back. It's a classic American story, and you sell it hard. You are sitting in your office in Trump Tower, which you kept, by the way, surrounded by memorabilia. Magazine covers with your face on them line the walls. It's a shrine to yourself. But it's also a marketing tool. When people come to visit potential partners, journalists, curious celebrities, they are surrounded by the evidence of your relevance. You point to a cover from 1985, and then one from 2005. See, you say, staying power. You look out the window at Central Park. The trees are turning gold in the autumn light. You've come a long way from that meeting with the bankers. You aren't just a real estate developer anymore. You are a logo. You are an adjective. Trumpian has entered the lexicon, meaning something gaudy, gold, and loud, and you love it. But there's a limit to how many buildings you can license. There's a limit to how many mattresses you can sell. You need something bigger. You need a platform that reaches not just the people walking past your buildings, but the people sitting in their living rooms. You need to enter the homes of millions of Americans every single week. You get a call from a producer named Mark Burnett. He has an idea for a show. It's about business. It's about survival in the corporate jungle. He wants to film it in the luscious, green jungles of the Amazon or something. But you hate bugs. You hate camping. You tell him, Mark, the real jungle is right here. New York City, the concrete jungle. You invite him to your office. You show him the gold. You show him the view. You show him the Trump character you've been perfecting for decades. You pitch him on the idea of a show where people fight for the chance to work for times you asterisk. Not a generic CEO. You, the ultimate boss. Burnett listens. He looks at you. He sees what the bankers saw, but through a different lens. He doesn't see a liability. He sees a star. He sees a character that is larger than life, almost cartoonish in its perfection. A billionaire who sits on a golden throne and dispenses judgment. You shake hands. You don't know it yet, but you just signed the deal that will change the trajectory of your life and the world more than any skyscraper ever could. You are about to trade the boardroom for the soundstage, and you are about to discover that your signature isn't just worth money, it's worth ratings. And in the 21st century, ratings are power. Is firing people on national television the ultimate marketing strategy? You are standing in a dimly lit boardroom, but it's not a real boardroom. It's a set built inside Trump Tower, constructed to look like a darker, more menacing version of your actual office. The wood is darker, the lighting is dramatic, and the cameras are everywhere. Across the table sit a group of sweaty, anxious contestants who look like they're about to vomit. You lean forward, narrow your eyes, and deliver the line that will become your catchphrase, your mantra, and your weapon. You're fired. It's 2004, and Times, The Apprentice Times, has just premiered. You were skeptical at first. Reality TV was for people eating bugs or marrying strangers. It wasn't for serious businessmen, but the numbers are in, and they are staggering. 20 million people are watching. You are beating Times Friends asterisk. You are beating Times ER asterisk. You are the #1 show on television. Suddenly, you aren't just a rich guy from New York anymore. You are Times, the Times rich guy. You are the archetype of American success beamed into living rooms from Topeka to Tallahassee. Every Thursday night, millions of Americans watch you sit in that high-back chair and demand excellence. They see you cut through the nonsense, make snap decisions, and punish incompetence. To a country tired of corporate scandals like Enron and WorldCom, where faceless executives stole pensions in the dark, you are a breath of fresh air. You are the boss who actually holds people accountable. Of course, it's edited. It's produced. The boardroom decisions are often discussed with producers beforehand to maximize drama. But the audience doesn't care about the sausage making. They love the sausage. They love the myth. You are rebuilding your image, brick by digital brick. The bankruptcies of the 90 seconds, forgotten. The struggling casinos, irrelevant. On TV, you are omnipotent. You arrive in a helicopter. You leave in a limousine. The soundtrack is the OJ's singing "For the Love of Money." It is a weekly hour-long commercial for the Trump brand, and NBC is paying times to air it. You start to realize the immense power of this medium. You are reaching a demographic you never touched with your luxury condos. Blue-collar workers, stay-at-home moms, students, they all feel like they know you. You are Mr. Trump. You are tough but fair. You are aspirational. People stop you on the street not to ask for a loan, but to ask for a photo. They want you to fire their friends as a joke. You oblige. You lean into the caricature. Here's a quirky tidbit you probably missed. During the height of Times, The Apprentice *, you actually tried to trademark the phrase, "You're fired." Think about the audacity of that. You wanted to own the words for terminating employment. The trademark office rejected it, claiming it was too similar to the board game, "You're hired." But the attempt itself speaks volumes. You believed you owned the concept of being the boss. And financially, it's a bonanza. You are paid millions per episode. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The product placement deals are insane. You charge companies millions to have their detergent or their car featured in a task. You are double dipping, triple dipping. You are monetizing the airtime. The Apprentice Times becomes the engine that drives your entire organization. It funds the golf courses you're buying up in Scotland and Bedminster. It revitalizes the licensing deals. But something else is happening. Something deeper than money. You are getting a taste of pure, undiluted influence. You notice that when you speak on the show, people listen. When you praise a product, sales spike. When you criticize a contestant, they are pariahs. You are controlling the narrative. Historians still argue whether The Apprentice Times was a documentary of your business acumen or a complete fabrication that tricked the American public into thinking you were a competent manager. The truth is likely in the middle. You were a survivor, a deal-maker. But the show stripped away the messy nuance, the debt restructuring, the lawsuits, the failures, and presented a polished, invincible avatar. It created a character named Donald Trump that was far more powerful than the human being Donald Trump. You start to get bored with just business, though. You've conquered real estate. You've conquered TV. What's next? You start looking at the news. You start looking at the political landscape. You see politicians who are stiff, boring, teleprompter-reading robots. They don't know how to work a camera. They don't know how to build suspense. They don't know how to entertain. You think, I could do that better. You start making appearances on news shows, not to talk about real estate, but to give your opinion on the world. You call in to Times Fox and Friends *. You critique the president. You critique the economy. You treat politics like another season of Times, The Apprentice *. Who is performing well? Who should be fired? You use the language of the show to describe the state of the nation. Our leaders are stupid, you say. We are getting killed on trade. It's simple. It's punchy. It's TV ready. You notice that the anchors don't cut you off. They lean in. They laugh. They treat you as a spectacle, a sideshow, but they give you the airtime because you bring ratings. You realize that the same rules that applied to reality TV apply to cable news. Conflict is good. Controversy is better. Being boring is the only sin. In 2011, you get a slot at the Comedy Central roast of Donald Trump. It seems like harmless fun. Seth MacFarlane and a bunch of comedians tear you apart for an hour. They mock your hair, your money, your wives. You sit there, smiling that frozen smile, taking it on the chin. But there's a moment, a specific moment, where the jokes cut a little too deep. Maybe it's when they mock your business acumen. Maybe it's when they imply you aren't as rich as you say. Some say, this was the moment the fire was lit. You sat there, humiliated but hiding it, and decided you were going to show them all. You weren't just a joke. You weren't just a reality TV star. You were serious. You look out at the audience, laughing at you, and you think, I can own this room. I can own any room. You leave the roast, and the wheels are turning. The contract for The Apprentice Times, is up for renewal soon. You have leverage. But maybe you don't want to just renew. Maybe you want to expand the franchise. You look at the White House. It's the ultimate trophy property. It's the ultimate boardroom. You start testing the waters. You need an issue. You need a hook. You need something that will grab the attention of the media and not let go. You don't want to talk about tax policy or healthcare. That's boring. You need a conspiracy. You need a mystery. You need a scandal. And then you hear a rumor. A fringe theory bubbling up in the dark corners of the internet about the president's birth certificate. It sounds crazy. It sounds impossible. But you look at it and you see something else. You see a wedge. You see a spotlight. You see a way to force the entire media ecosystem to talk about you, and only you. You pick up the phone. You call a reporter. I have people in Hawaii. You lie, or maybe you exaggerate. Who's counting? And they cannot believe what they are finding. The hook is set. The show is about to go from a weekly pre-taped entertainment hour to a 24/7 live news cycle event, and you are the executive producer, the director, and the star. Are you actually running for office? Or are you just running the world's loudest, most chaotic focus group? This is the question on everyone's lips as you turn the calendar to 2011. You have identified a gap in the market. The Republican establishment is polite, boring, and obsessed with tax cuts. The base, however, the people who buy your tickets and watch your show, is angry. They feel like the country is slipping away. You realize that to capture them, you don't need a white paper on economic reform. You need a villain. And who better than the President of the United States? You latch onto the birther theory with the ferocity of a pit bull on a pant leg. It's a baseless conspiracy theory claiming Barack Obama wasn't born in America. To the political elites, it's radioactive sludge. To you, it's gold. It's the ultimate us versus them wedge. You start going on Times, The View, *, The Times, Today Times Show, *, Fox News, *, repeating the same line. I just want to see the birth certificate. You position yourself not as a candidate, but as a skeptic in chief. You tell the world you have sent investigators to Hawaii. You drop teasers like a reality TV showrunner. They cannot believe what they are finding. Spoiler alert, they aren't finding anything. But that doesn't matter. The Times suspense times is what matters. You are forcing the sitting president to respond to Times you *. You are dragging the commander-in-chief down into the mud to wrestle, and unlike Mitt Romney or John McCain, you love the mud. The mud is where you make your money. The media falls for it hook, line, and sinker. They scream that it's racist. They scream that it's a lie. But they put you on air every single day. You are driving the ratings. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, they all see a bump when you're on. You are hacking the media ecosystem. You realize that outrage spreads faster than truth, and controversy is the only currency that inflates in a recession. But then comes the night that changes everything. The 30th of April 2011, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. You are sitting at a table in the Washington Hilton Ballroom, surrounded by the same journalists and Hollywood stars you've courted for decades. But tonight, the vibe is different. The air is chilly. President Obama takes the stage. He has just released his long-form birth certificate, effectively popping your balloon. And now, he has the microphone. He proceeds to roast you. He plays a clip from Times The Lion King Times as his birth video. The room erupts. He mocks your decision-making on Times, Celebrity Apprentice *, joking about whether Lil Jon or Meatloaf should have been fired. The room is howling. Laughter crashes over you like a tidal wave. The cameras cut to your face. You are not laughing. You are smiling that tight, frozen smile, eyes locked forward, jaw set like granite. Historians still argue whether this specific night was the catalyst, the Batman villain origin story, where you vowed revenge, or if you simply sat there calculating the free airtime you were getting. Most people would have withered and crawled into a hole. You sit there and absorb the humiliation, converting it into fuel. You realize that they aren't laughing times with Times You. They are laughing times at Times You. And in your world, that is a declaration of war. But you don't declare war yet. You pull back. You announce you won't run in 2012. You endorse Romney, who looks like he'd rather be endorsed by a contagious disease than by you, but he takes the photo op anyway. You watch Romney lose. You watch the Republicans clutch their pearls and write an autopsy report saying they need to be nicer and more inclusive. You read that report and you laugh. Nicer? You think. Wrong. You spend the next 3 years perfecting the act. You treat politics like a branding exercise. You start tweeting. Oh, the tweets. You discover Twitter is the perfect medium for your brain. Short, punchy, unfiltered, and immediate. No PR team. No filters. Just you and the send button at 3 a.m. You attack journalists. You attack celebrities. You attack global warming, calling it a Chinese hoax. Here is a quirky tidbit from this wilderness period. You actually trademarked the phrase, "Make America Great Again," in 2012, mere days after Romney loses. While the rest of the party is crying in their beers, you are filing paperwork with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. You didn't invent the phrase. Reagan used it in '80, but you knew a good slogan when you saw one, and you grabbed it before the body of the Romney campaign was even cold. You also start holding rallies that aren't really rallies. You speak at conservative conferences, testing lines. You try out "Build the Wall." The room goes quiet, then confused, then energetic. You try out "China is ripping us off." Heads nod. You are A/B testing your platform in real time. You are a stand-up comedian working out new material in small clubs before the big Netflix special. You learn that the crowd doesn't want policy nuances. They want red meat. They want to be told that their problems have a simple cause and a simple solution. You also maintain the tease. "I might run," you say to every reporter who will listen. "I'm looking at it very seriously." It keeps your name in the headlines. It keeps The Apprentice, Times relevant. It keeps the licensing fees high. Most people think it's a negotiating tactic for your TV contract. NBC certainly thinks so. They offer you more money. They think they're playing you. But as 2015 approaches, the landscape shifts. The field is crowded with establishment types. Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Scott Walker. They are raising hundreds of millions of dollars. They have consultants, pollsters, data analytics teams. They are fighting the last war. You look at your internal data, which is mostly just your gut instinct and the number of retweets you get, and you see an opening the size of the Grand Canyon. The American people are bored. They are angry at the system. They hate the scripted politicians. They want a wrecking ball. You look at your lifestyle. You're pushing 70. You have the planes, the gold, the fame. You could retire. You could play golf every day for the rest of your life. But that's not who you are. You need the action. You need the win. And there is one title you haven't won yet. You start assembling a team. It's not the A-team of Washington operatives. Those guys won't return your calls. It's a ragtag group of outliers, loyalists, and people who, quite frankly, have nothing to lose. You don't have a traditional campaign manager. You have a guy who used to run a political website from his basement. You don't have a pollster. You have your Twitter feed. You tell your family. Melania is hesitant. She knows what this means for her privacy. Ivanka is intriguing. She sees the brand potential. The boys are all in. They see a fight. You decide to do it. But you aren't going to do it like a normal politician. You aren't going to announce in a park with your sleeves rolled up, talking about hope. You are going to do it in your own house, surrounded by your own gold, on your own terms. You are going to turn a political announcement into a scene from a movie. The tease is over. The focus group is closed. The product launch is imminent. You check your tie. You check your hair. You look at the escalator. It's a long ride down. And once you step on it, there is no coming back up. How do you turn a chaotic, rambling, 60-minute announcement speech into a lethal political weapon? It is the 16th of June 2015. You are standing at the top of the atrium in Trump Tower. The air smells of expensive cologne and the faint, sweet scent of the Starbucks on the second floor. Below you, a crowd has gathered. The press is there, dozens of cameras, reporters from every major network, all crammed into the press pen like cattle. They are rolling their eyes. They are checking their watches. To them, this is a circus sideshow, a publicity stunt for the next season of Times The Apprentice *. They expect you to sell steaks, or maybe announce a new hotel in Baku. They do not expect you to set the world on fire. You signal the DJ. The opening chords of Neil Young's "Rockin' in the Free World" blast through the speakers. It's loud. It's aggressive. It's an anthem of rebellion, which is ironic because you are a billionaire living in a golden penthouse. But irony died a long time ago in your world. You step onto the golden escalator with Melania. This is the shot. You know visuals. You know that a guy walking out to a podium is boring. Jeb Bush walks to a podium. Hillary Clinton walks to a podium. You times descend *. You are coming down from Olympus to mingle with the mortals. The ride is slow. It gives the cameras time to focus. You wave. You give a thumbs up. You look stoic. You are literally moving downward. But metaphorically, You are ascending to the main stage. As you glide down, you look at the crowd. Here is a quirky, slightly fringed tidbit that has dogged this day for years. Allegations will surface that some of the people cheering in the atrium were paid actors, hired for $50 cash to hold signs and look enthusiastic. Did you know? Do you care? In show business, you fill the seats. It doesn't matter if they are paid or organic. It matters that the room looks full on CNN. Perception is reality. If the room looks loud, the movement looks real. You reach the bottom. You step up to the podium. There is no teleprompter. This is a crucial decision. Teleprompters are for puppets. Teleprompters are for politicians who need a focus group to tell them what to think. You have a few notes in your pocket, but mostly, you have your gut. You have the same instinct that got you through the creditors' meetings in the 90 seconds and the boardroom tapings in the 2000s. You are going to jazz, freestyle, riff. You start talking, and you don't start with, "My fellow Americans," or "I am humbled." You start by talking about the weather. You talk about the size of the crowd. You talk about your net worth. "I'm really rich," you say. It's crass. It's brash. It violates every rule of political decorum. Consultants would tell you to be relatable, to talk about your grandmother's struggles. You talk about your assets. You know that people don't want a relatable friend. They want a winner. They want someone who has beaten the system. And then, you drop the bomb. You start talking about immigration. You don't use the sanitized language of border security or comprehensive reform. You go for the jugular. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best, you say. The room creates a vacuum of silence for a split second before the cameras start clicking furiously. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people. The media pen practically explodes. You can see the reporters frantically typing into their BlackBerries and iPhones. They are horrified. You have just committed political suicide on live television. You have insulted an entire neighbor nation. You have used a word, rapists, that no politician touches with a 10-foot pole. In the traditional playbook, your campaign ends right here, at minute 10. But you aren't reading the traditional playbook. You are reading the room. You are reading the anger that has been simmering in the country for years. You know that while the pundits in D.C. clutch their pearls, a guy sitting in a bar in Pennsylvania is nodding. You know that while the New York Times prepares a scathing editorial, a family in Michigan who lost their factory jobs is listening. They don't hear racism, they hear protection. They hear someone finally screaming what they've been whispering. You ramble on. You talk about China. "They're killing us," you shout. You talk about Japan. You talk about the trade deficit. You promise to build a great, great wall and make Mexico pay for it. It sounds like fantasy. It sounds like a child's idea of foreign policy. But it's visual. It's concrete. A wall is something you can picture. Comprehensive immigration reform is a stack of paper. A wall is a monument. You are a builder, remember? You sell monuments. You finish the speech. It went on for over 45 minutes. It was messy, disjointed, and chaotic. You leave the stage. The pundits are laughing. The headlines are already being written. Trump's bizarre announcement. The clown prince of politics. Dead on arrival. The betting markets give you a 1% chance of winning the nomination. The Times Huffington Post Times decides they won't even cover your campaign in the politics section. They'll cover it in the entertainment section, next to the Kardashians. But that night, you watch the news. You are on every channel. You are the lead story. Jeb Bush, the presumptive frontrunner, the guy with the $100 million war chest, and the last name that opens every door, is a footnote. You sucked all the oxygen out of the room. You realize that you have a superpower. You are interesting. And in the attention economy, being interesting is worth more than being qualified. Historians still argue whether you truly intended to win that day, or if this was just the ultimate branding exercise gone rogue, a leverage play to get a better deal for The Apprentice Times that accidentally tapped into a populist volcano. There's a theory that you expected to poll at 15%, get a ton of press, drop out, and launch a new media network. But a funny thing happens in the days following the escalator ride. The polls come out. You aren't at 1%. You are surging. You are number 2, then number 1. The comments you made about Mexico, instead of sinking you, They acted like a flare gun, signaling to every disaffected voter in the country that you were the anti-politician. The media's outrage is actually fueling your rise. Every time they call you a monster, your base loves you more. They hate the media. So, if the media hates you, you must be doing something right. You start traveling. You go to Iowa. You go to New Hampshire. And you see the crowds. They aren't the paid actors from the atrium anymore. These are real people. They are wearing "Make America Great Again" hats, those cheap, red trucker hats that your designer hated but you insisted on because the visor is big and the font is legible from a mile away. They are lining up for blocks. They are bringing memorabilia for you to sign. They are screaming your name. You look out at them from the stage, and you spot a hunger that the experts are completely missing. The experts are looking at spreadsheets and demographics. You are looking at faces. You see fear. You see resentment. You see a desperate desire for a strong man to come in and flip the table. They don't care about your policy papers, you don't have any. They care about your attitude. They want you to go to Washington and fire everyone. You realize that the joke isn't a joke anymore. You have stumbled onto the third rail of American politics, and instead of electrocuting you, it's charging you up. You are riding a tiger. You call your team. "We're going to need a bigger plane," you say. The private 757, the one with the gold seatbelts, becomes Trump Force One. You start holding rallies in high school gyms, then convention centers, then stadiums. You realize that the campaign is just a series of reality TV episodes, and you are the star, the producer, and the network executive all rolled into one. The establishment Republicans, the Bushes, the Romneys, the McCains, are bewildered. They try to attack you with logic. They say your math doesn't work. They say you aren't a true conservative. You attack them with nicknames. Low Energy Jeb, Little Marco, Lion Ted. You brand them like you branded your buildings. You reduce their entire careers to a single, humiliating adjective. And it sticks. You are rewriting the rules of political gravity. Up is down. Wrong is right. A scandal is a boon. You are descending that escalator every single day, going deeper into the chaos, and the crowd is following you down, cheering the whole way. Why does every scandal that should kill your campaign only make you stronger? You are standing on a stage in Sioux Center, Iowa, in January 2016, and you decide to test a theory. You look at the crowd, loyal and roaring, and you say the words that will haunt political science textbooks for decades. "I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose voters." The press gasps. The pundits clutch their chests. But the crowd, they cheer, they laugh, they love it. You have discovered a glitch in the matrix. In the old world, the world of Romney and McCain, a gaffe was fatal. A misspelled word, remember, potato, could end a career. But you aren't playing by those rules. You are playing by the rules of celebrity, where the only sin is being boring. You realize that you can say anything, absolutely anything, as long as you say it with conviction. You tear up the playbook on day one. When you insult John McCain, a war hero, a prisoner of war, saying, "I like people who weren't captured," the entire Republican establishment waits for the lightning bolt to strike you down. They draft their condemnation statements. They prepare your obituary. But the lightning never comes. Instead, your poll numbers go up. Why? Because you attacked a sacred cow, and your voters are tired of sacred cows. They see your cruelty not as a character flaw, but as a weapon they can wield against a system they despise. You pick fights that make no strategic sense. You go to war with Fox News, the very mothership of conservative media. You attack Megyn Kelly after a debate, saying she had blood coming out of her wherever. It's crude. It's sexist. It's the kind of comment that gets a CEO fired in an afternoon. But you aren't a CEO anymore. You are a gladiator. You force the base to choose between their favorite network and their favorite star. They choose the star. You break the media's power to vet you because you simply refuse to be vetted. You turn the debates into reality TV brawls. While the other candidates are memorizing policy statistics about marginal tax rates, you are looking at them and making fun of their height, their sweat, their energy levels. You call Marco Rubio Little Marco to his face. You mock Rand Paul's looks. It's bullying. Pure and simple, but it works. You strip them of their dignity. You turn senators into schoolboys. You dominate the stage not with logic, but with alpha male dominance displays that trigger something primal in the audience. Here is a quirky, slightly fringed tidbit from the primary debates that captures the madness. At one point, you actually defend the size of your hands and, by implication, your manhood on a national stage during a presidential debate. A sitting senator makes a joke about your small hands, and you, the frontrunner for the nuclear codes, spend valuable airtime guaranteeing the American people that there is no problem down there. It is bizarre, it is undignified, and it completely neutralizes the attack. Historians still argue whether you were a master strategist playing 4D chess, intentionally creating chaos to distract from your lack of policy detail, or if you were simply a man with zero impulse control who happened to be bulletproof. Were you a genius or just lucky? The answer barely matters, because the result is the same. You suck the oxygen out of the room. You get an estimated $2 billion in free media coverage. You don't need to buy ads, you just need to tweet. But then comes the true test, the October surprise. It is 1 month before the election. The Times Access Hollywood Times tape drops. The world hears your voice, recorded on a hot mic in 2005, bragging about grabbing women by the pussy. It is graphic, it is predatory, it is indefensible. This isn't just a gaffe. It is a moral crater. The Republican Party panics. Senators unendorse you. Your own running mate, Mike Pence, goes into hiding. The media declares the election over. Hillary Clinton is already measuring the drapes. You sit in Trump Tower, watching the coverage. For a brief moment, the armor cracks. You see the disgust. You see the walls closing in. But then, that survival instinct from the 90 seconds kicks in. You realize that apologizing, truly apologizing, is death. Weakness is death. So you film a hostage-style video statement. You say, "I was wrong," but you immediately pivot. You call it locker room talk. You point the finger at Bill Clinton. You turn the shield into a sword. 2 days later, at the next debate, you don't walk out with your head down. You hold a press conference times before times the debate with Bill Clinton's accusers. You sit them in the front row, staring down Hillary. It is a move of such psychological aggression that it leaves the commentators breathless. You don't defend your actions. You attack the accuser's legitimacy. You muddy the waters until the water is so thick with slime that no one can see the bottom. And it works. The outrage burns hot, but it burns fast. Your base looks at the tape and shrugs. "He's not a priest," they say. "We're hiring a bodyguard, not a Sunday school teacher." They forgive you because you are the only one fighting the people they hate. You realize that loyalty, for them, is transactional. You give them the fight, they give you the pass. You ramp up the rhetoric. You start calling the election rigged. You tell your supporters that if you lose, it's because it was stolen. You are preloading the excuse, but you are also delegitimizing the entire democratic process. "Lock her up" becomes the chant at your rallies. It starts as a murmur and becomes a roar. You stand at the podium, basking in it, nodding. You are channeling a darkness that has always been there, just beneath the surface. But you are the first one to give it a microphone. The crowds get bigger, the energy gets darker. You tell them to knock the hell out of protesters. You offer to pay their legal fees. You are creating a movement that feels less like a political campaign and more like an uprising. You are the leader of the rebellion, flying around in a gold-plated jet, eating KFC with a knife and fork, telling the forgotten men and women that they are the true elite. You finish the campaign not with a message of hope, but with a message of carnage, American carnage. You paint a picture of a country in ruins, factories closed, borders overrun, cities burning. Only you can fix it, only you. It is the night of November 8th. You are in Trump Tower. You have torn up every rule, insulted every demographic, broken every norm. You have run the most chaotic, negative, and unorthodox campaign in American history. The experts say you have a 1% chance of winning. The champagne is on ice at the Javits Center for Hillary. You are preparing your concession speech, or maybe your "it was rigged" speech. But then, the results start coming in from Florida. What goes through your mind when the joke finally becomes the reality? You are sitting in the residence of Trump Tower, watching a massive television screen that is currently displaying a map of the United States. It is early in the evening on the 8th of November 2016. The mood in the room is weird. It's not a victory party. It feels more like a wake for a very loud, very expensive funeral. Your team is crunching numbers, but mostly they are preparing the spin for a respectable loss. You have your concession speech ready, or at least the bullet points of a speech that blames the media, the rigged system, and the globalists for your defeat. You are ready to launch Trump TV, the next logical step in your monetization of American outrage. But then, the numbers from Florida start to drift in. They are supposed to be blue. The experts said they would be blue. The exit polls said they would be blue. But the counties in the Panhandle, the ones full of the people you screamed for at the rallies, are coming in with margins that don't make sense. You are winning them by 30, 40 points. The pundits on CNN look confused. Wolf Blitzer's voice goes up an octave. You lean forward, squinting at the screen. You grab a Diet Coke. You haven't touched the alcohol, of course. You are a teetotaler, a man who needs total control. And right now, the control is slipping away from the predictors and sliding toward you. Florida turns red. The room goes quiet. A heavy, suffocating silence descends on the penthouse. This wasn't in the script. You look at your campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. She is on her phone, frantically refreshing data. You look at your children. They are frozen. This is the moment the roller coaster was supposed to stop, let you off, and let you go back to being a celebrity. But the safety bar is locked, and the car is chugging up a hill that goes higher than anyone thought existed. Then comes the blue wall. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. These are the states that Republicans don't win. They haven't won them in decades. But you spent time there. You did the rallies in the freezing rain. You told the steelworkers you'd bring the mills back, even if you had no idea how to actually do it. And now, they are paying you back. The map is bleeding red in the Rust Belt. Historians still argue whether the look on your face that night was one of triumphant vindication or sheer, unadulterated terror. There are reports, though your team denies them vigorously, that when the reality set in, you looked like you'd seen a ghost. You stopped talking. You stopped tweeting. The weight of what was happening began to crush the air out of the room. You weren't just winning a popularity contest. You were winning the nuclear codes. You were winning the keys to the entire global order. Here is a quirky, almost cinematic tidbit from the night. While the world held its breath, you were reportedly calm, almost catatonic, while those around you were losing their minds. Your son, Barron, was struggling to stay awake, a 10-year-old kid watching his father accidentally conquer the world. The buffet of food, fast food, naturally sat getting cold. It was the most expensive apartment in New York City, filled with the most powerful people in the coming administration, and it smelled like filet-o-fish and fear. Fox News calls Wisconsin. It's over. You have breached the 270 threshold. The phone rings. It's not a journalist. It's not a donor. It's Huma Abedin, putting Hillary Clinton on the line. You take the phone. The voice on the other end is tight, controlled, devastated. "Congratulations, Donald," she says. "I concede." You hang up. You look around the room. The people who were laughing at you 3 years ago, the people who called you a clown, a grifter, a sideshow, they are now looking at you as if you are the Messiah or the boss. You realize in that instant that you are no longer Donald Trump, the brand. You are Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States. You have to go give a speech. You have to go to the Hilton Midtown. You put on your overcoat. You look in the mirror. The red tie is perfectly straight. The hair is sprayed into its helmet-like perfection. You take a breath. You are about to walk out onto a stage. But this time, you aren't descending an escalator to announce a long-shot bid. You are walking out as the most powerful man on earth. You arrive at the Hilton. It's 3 a.m. The crowd has been waiting for hours. They are delirious. They are chanting. You walk out to the soundtrack of the movie Times Air Force One ***. It's almost too perfect, too on the nose, but subtlety has never been your strong suit. You stand at the podium. You look at the teleprompters, but you ignore them for a moment. You look at the faces. "Sorry to keep you waiting," you say. "Complicated business." You are gracious. You congratulate Hillary. You talk about binding the wounds of division. It is a surreal performance of normalcy after a campaign of scorched earth. But as you speak, a strange sensation washes over you. You look at the sea of red hats. You realize that you did it. You actually did it. You took $1 billion of debt, a broken reputation, a reality TV show, and a Twitter account. And you hijacked the American democracy. You think back to that homeless man on Fifth Avenue in 1990. The man with $0 who was richer than you. He's gone now. You are here. You have pulled off the greatest second act in the history of capitalism. You have turned the ultimate failure into the ultimate success. The speech ends. The balloons drop. The Rolling Stones play, "You Can't Always Get What You Want," another ironic choice that makes the pundits' heads explode. You wave. You smile. You walk off stage, flanked by Secret Service agents who now belong to you. You get into the Beast, the armored limousine. The door thuds shut, sealing you in a bubble of silence and bulletproof glass. You are moving through the streets of New York, the city that made you, the city that mocked you, the city that you now own in a way no developer ever could. You look out the window at the passing streetlights. The journey is complete. You went from the red ink of the ledger to the red room of the White House. You proved them all wrong. Every banker, every reporter, every politician. They said you were a joke. But tonight, nobody is laughing.